Hello, and welcome to the Wade Borth podcast. I'm your host, Wade Borth, and in every episode, my goal is to get you to think differently about how money works and ultimately to empower you to take control of your money and your personal financing system. Hello, and welcome back to the Wade Borth podcast. Today, I was actually prepping for this podcast, and I had some things I wanted to discuss, and maybe I'll continue those in a separate podcast, but right before my getting on this to record a podcast, I had something happen that I wanted to share with everybody that's listens to the Wade Borth podcast. And I titled this, What Happens When the Unexpected Happens? I got a call from a client. She sounded distraught. I said, hey, what's wrong? And she said, I took my husband into the hospital. He wasn't feeling well and he never came home. And I thought, oh my gosh. And so today I want to just talk about what happens when the unexpected happens. And the unexpected in their life was the fact that we're all going to graduate from this world. And that's the expected part. But the thing about that we don't know is when. And the when is the unexpected part. And I feel the emotion and how much this hurt my client when we were having this conversation. And I wanted to share this with you because a lot of times in the IBC world, we talk about all the other things, all the other benefits of using a policy and storing money there and use it for infinite banking and all that other stuff. But today, it really drove home this idea of this is life insurance. This is one of the greatest assets ever created that serves our clients, that serves our people at the most vulnerable and difficult times in their lives. So what do I have to do? What do you expect when this happens? It's like, let me be, and I told my client, I said, let me take care of the paperwork. Let me help you through this process as much as I can, because there's nothing I'm going to do that's going to take away that pain and that loss. But as an agent for this client that sold him this policy, I have the ability now to at least engage with the client. And I heard there's a gentleman, he's the president of One America. He did a presentation, not really a presentation, he was having a discussion with a group of us, and his name is Dennis Martin. Great guy, we have a great friendship, and he made this comment, and if you can just imagine, when times like this happen, what do money managers do? What do people that manage money, and really the rest of the world, banks, whoever it might be, if you can imagine, they reach out to the client and they pull because they want to hold and retain all those assets. That's kind of what we do. And now just imagine what an insurance company does. They take their right hand and they push. They're going to push this asset out to this client. And they're going to say, this is because you planned for this. We're going to push this asset of death benefit out to you. It doesn't take away the pain. It doesn't take away the loneliness. It doesn't take away the fear and concerns about how we're going to have an auction sale or how we're going to be able to cope with this. And all the uncertainty that these people had a lifetime of being together, and now her life is going to change. But what it's not going to do, it's not going to add to the burden of how do I pay that bill. It brings some certainty of, okay, I have the resources now to pay those bills. I have the resources now to grieve. I have the resources to be able to take some time and reflect and say, where do I go from here? Versus having to take 10 seconds and then start making decisions about how do I pay these bills and what am I going to my next step, because I don't have any resources. And I think about that story and just that vision, that thought that Dennis shared with us, that everybody else is pulling back and the only thing they push out is a bill, where an insurance company takes your right hand and they push this resource back out to the client at the most vulnerable time, at the time that they need it the most. And I think about this from the industry that I'm in, is like, the life insurance industry, it kind of gets a black eye sometimes, and maybe they deserve it. But I think about at this time, this is the greatest industry in the world. We're out here providing this client, because they've done some planning in advance, this thing that, again, it doesn't take away the pain, but it takes away a lot of the uncertainty financially for the client. And kudos to them for doing the planning that they did. Congratulations to them for thinking about this. And again, maybe we didn't think about it hard enough or long enough, because maybe we would have had a bigger policy, maybe we would have done things differently, but it's better than having nothing at all. And so as we think about infinite banking concept, or if we're using other assets or other strategies to try to help bolster our net worth or our cash resources. Think about what happens when the unexpected is going to happen. We don't know when that time is going to happen. And when it does, who's there financially to step in and say, here's a pot of money to help you through your grieving. And here's a pot of money to help you solve some of those questions that you have. Here's a pot of money to help you bring certainty and some clarity to what you need to be doing in your life, or what you want to be doing, not what you need to be doing, what you want to do. And just giving you some breathing room. So I guess probably the podcast today is, let's appreciate the product that we have, right? This idea of whole life insurance, right? It's a product that's going to be enforced at the time of death. Unless you do something that is not going to make that happen, you surrender it, you overloan it, whatever it might be. But it's going to be there. It's going to be there to serve the purpose that it was designed for. And so I guess that for the reason for this podcast, I'm like, let's not discount how valuable that is. And we want to, quite frankly, it's easy because we don't want to think about that inevitable thing that's going to happen. We want to say, I don't want to think about it, but it's going to happen. But we want to just ignore it because we want to think that there's a better time that it's going to happen. It's going to happen down the road. Well, sometimes we don't know. The comment that was made here is, I took him in to the hospital, not knowing I'd never bring him home. I took him into the hospital, and I never imagined not bringing him home. How difficult is that? I feel for her. I wept with her. But it's one of those things that we're in an industry that can help people. We're in an industry that is a service to people. And it's a service to people from the standpoint of, we help them with their savings conversation, with their financial awareness. I mean, the podcast, the Wade Borth podcast that you're listening to right now, you go to Sagewell Strategy, you look at all the other information, it's there to help you, empower you to take control and bring that certainty to your life. And part of that certainty that you're bringing to your life or to your family's life is this death benefit that is so valuable. It's valuable while we're alive and while we're using it for IBC concepts. Absolutely. But it's also super valuable, probably even more valuable, quite frankly, at the time when we graduate from this world. And when we graduate from this world, it brings that sense of certainty, not to the person that passed away, although that does it while he or she is still alive, but it does it at the most vulnerable time we have. And that complete uncertainty of death and separation from a lifelong partner, it brings that sense of certainty to ourselves or to our families. So I guess the moral of this podcast is, appreciate the product you have, embrace it, look at it and say, do I have enough? I feel bad because did we have enough on this client? No, we could have had more. Is it something where we would have done more for the client? Yes, but were they better off than had they had nothing? Absolutely. So think about, how can I go out and get more of this to protect my family? And when I have more of it, I can now also use it in many different ways. But the most important design of this product is the fact it's there. It's designed to be there when the unexpected happens. If you want to know more about this, if you want to have a deeper conversation, if you want to say, do I have enough coverage? Do I have enough life insurance on my life so my family doesn't have to have uncertainty when I graduate from this world? Because we don't know when that's going to be. Give us a call. I'd love to hear from you, because this is something I can tell you from my own personal experience. I've talked to a lot of, in 35 years, I've talked to a lot of widows and widowers that were so happy because I wasn't delivering a bill, I was delivering money. And money doesn't solve that loneliness. Money doesn't solve the problems, but it doesn't make it worse. So anyhow, love to have that conversation, because this life insurance is the language of love. It truly is. I heard somebody say this one time. He says, if you don't love someone, you don't need life insurance. But if you love someone, you're going to want life insurance. So reach out to us. I'd love to hear from you if you have questions, thoughts, concerns, because this is something that's going to happen to everyone. The question is, are we going to plan for it or we're not? Do we love somebody or do we not? So love to have a deeper conversation with you on a personal level. Reach out to us. Go out to our website, schedule an appointment with me. You can reach me at wade@sagewellstrategy.com. Go out to sagewells.com and look at our content and schedule an appointment from there if you'd like. So think about that. And if you have questions, I'd love to continue a conversation. Thank you. If you're enjoying this podcast or know anyone else that might be interested, please be sure to hit the subscribe button and please leave a review. This will help this podcast reach and help more people by ranking higher in searches, and ultimately help more people get out of financial bondage. And don't be afraid to share this podcast with your friends and family, as we can be easily found on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.